As I shared in my video on how to quit sugar, having too much sugar in your diet can lead to a whole bunch of issues like cardiovascular disease, insulin resistance, obesity, and diabetes. So that's why it's so important to start limiting our intake of added sugars, which usually causes a lot of people to start turning to artificial and sugar-free sweeteners. But the problem is that actually isn't always the best choice, and that artificial sweeteners and calorie-free sweeteners have other issues that they pose if you have too much of them as well. And artificial sugars are not all created equal. So in our guide to sweeteners today, I'm going to cover the artificial sweetener options that we have available to us so that you feel comfortable making an informed decision that's for the benefit of your health and helps you reach your goals. So let's get started. So right off the bat, let me discuss real quickly what my point of view is on sweeteners so that you kind of have an understanding of where I'm coming from. In general, whether it's calorie-free sweeteners like stevia and xylitol, or it's naturally occurring sugars like pure maple syrup and raw honey, my recommendation for those is to pretty much limit them as much as possible so that we don't create this dependency on having added sweeteners and eating added sweetness to our foods. Because the more we have, the more we crave. And so if we can limit that, it's gonna make our lives a lot easier to reduce added sugars in our diet. And personally, I see a big value in artificial sweeteners, not because they are calorie-free, but because many of them don't cause an insulin spike. And so that's valuable so that we're not adding more and more stress on our body, causing our blood sugars to rise and then having to have insulin combat that. So in this video, I'm just gonna cover the non-caloric options, things like stevia and xylitol, erythritol, aspartame, all of those that don't have any calories or have very, very small amounts of calories in them. And also keep in mind that these types of sweeteners have no nutritional value either, so they're really not doing a whole lot for our bodies either. All right, so let's dive into our first sweetener, stevia, which so many people in the health world find is to be a very healthy option. So let's discuss whether it is or not. Stevia is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. It doesn't have calories. It doesn't raise your blood sugar, so that's nice. It's derived from the naturally occurring stevia leaf. While the stevia leaf does contain some nutritional value, by the time it's processed and broken down into the powder or the liquid that we have in front of us, it doesn't really have any nutritional value. Stevia can come as a liquid, a powder, or a granule. And really for clean eating purposes, it's considered a clean option if it is in liquid form. The problem with so much of the stevia powders out there is that they're cut with so many extra additives and extra chemicals that really don't make it very healthy at all. So if you can find it in liquid form, that's really the best option. Erythritol is another option. Erythritol actually is often cut with stevia in the stevia packets. So erythritol is actually pretty equal in density and sweetness to granulated sugar. Also, erythritol does not cause an insulin spike and does not change your blood glucose levels. But the problem with erythritol is if you have too much of it, it can cause some bloating and some digestive upset. So if you've ever had a full package of gummy bears that were sugar-free and it was sweetened with erythritol and you had some tummy issues after, that's why. Interestingly enough though, erythritol actually is really good for biting off cavities, and it can cause a cooling effect on your tongue. So oftentimes it's added to oral health options, like you can have it in toothpaste or in gum. Xylitol is an up-and-coming and very popular sweetener. Xylitol does not cause your blood glucose levels to rise in small amounts, and if you have it in large amounts, it can cause a small spike, but it is pretty minimal. Xylitol actually has very similar positive oral hygiene effects as erythritol, so you'll often see it in gum and toothpaste and mouthwash as well. And just like with erythritol, xylitol also causes digestive upset if you have too much of it. And the reason why it causes that issue is that it doesn't fully get absorbed as it's getting processed through your colon, which causes some issues. And so overall, in terms of clean eating, xylitol is considered pretty clean eating. But if you have dogs, be careful not to ever give them xylitol or put anything containing xylitol within their reach, because it is fatal to dogs. It can actually cause seizures, hyperglycemia, liver failure, and death. Definitely not good to have around dogs. All right, so let's talk about monk fruit. I'm actually working on a new video on monk fruit and all of its awesome benefits, and I have a post on the blog as well. Monk fruit is considered a clean eating option. You just have to make sure it's not cut with anything else that is not clean, like dextrose, for example. What I like about monk fruit is that it doesn't cause an increase to your blood sugar levels, so it's safe to have during a fast. It has a lot of nutritional benefits, and it has no aftertaste, which is a big win for me. And if you happen to follow me on Instagram, you already know that I am creating a protein powder blend and a whole line of Cleanish items, and we're gonna be using monk fruit extract as a sweetener for those. So I told you, I'm a pretty big fan. aspartame. This is a very, very popular one. It's sold in packages that are labeled equal or NutraSweet, and it's used by manufacturers a lot to add sweetness to foods that they call diet foods, like diet soda, for example. I used to think growing up that equal and aspartame are, they cause all this cancer in rats and all of that, but so if you are in that same boat, know that the research is basically saying that if used in moderation, it's not any big deal. Saccharine is another biggie, and you'll probably see it on the shelves called Sweet and Low, which is a super popular option. Saccharine is actually 300 to 500 times sweeter than table sugar, to give you an understanding of just how sweet it is. But the problem mostly with saccharine is that it often comes packaged along with dextrose, and dextrose is not a healthy option because it's very, very processed. And like aspartame, saccharin is often added to these foods because it really does have a sweet sugar taste. It doesn't have any aftertaste. So there's a lot of benefit for companies to just add it into their baked goods, say it has lower sugar levels, and still have it be sweet. Sucralose is another option. You'll often see it labeled as Splenda in the stores. So sucralose by itself is actually calorie-free, but when it's packaged as Splenda, it has dextrose and maltodextrin added to it, so it causes it to have about 3 calories per serving. As far as sweetness goes, it's about 400 to 700 times as sweet as table sugar, so it's very, very sweet. And so the major concern with Splenda is that when it's heated, it may cause some things to happen in your body that might lead to cancer. So the recommendation with Splenda usually is if you are gonna have it in something, that's fine, just don't bake with it. So research has shown that the 2 of the most popular options, Splenda and Equal, likely do break a fast and cause an insulin response with consistent use. But there are also some studies out there that show that 0 and low calorie sweeteners just don't have enough in them to invoke an insulin response. So it's kind of mixed research out there. In my opinion, if you're doing intermittent fasting, I would just stick to water or have other types of sweeteners that don't break a fast. I have a whole video on what does and does not break a fast I'll link to for you. All right, so now that we've talked about all these sweeteners, what's the best, healthiest option out of all of these sweeteners that we've talked about? Well, in general, my answer is gonna be kind of whatever works for you so that you have a way to help sweeten your foods without having to add a lot of added sweetener. It's really just kind of a case-by-case basis. Personally, I like monk fruit. I like that it doesn't have any aftertaste. I like that it comes from a naturally occurring fruit, and it carries a lot of nutritional benefits, whereas a lot of these other options don't. And monk fruit extract does not break a fast. So that's why that one is my favorite. Now check out my video on what breaks a fast, and I'll see you in the next video.